Hello everyone, this is me and Mariana's project over the Third Crusade.
We will start by talking about the different leaders in the Third Crusade.
Before doing research over the Third Crusade, I knew nothing about it. But after doing research, I found out that 1 out of 3 leaders made it to the Third Crusade to fight Saladin for that Holy Land.
Before doing research on the Third Crusade, I knew nothing about it. But after doing research, I learned that there was no winner to the Third Crusade, because instead, a treaty was signed. The first leader that we'll be talking about is Emperor Frederick Barbarossa. He was born in 1122. When he turned 25, he became the Duke of Swabia and later joined the Second Crusade. When the Second Crusade failed, he returned to Germany. Later, in 1189, he joined the Third Crusade. On their way to retaking Jerusalem from Saladin, the English and French kings traveled by sea, while Barbossa's army marched overland. As they crossed the river, he drowned and died in the year 1190.
The second leader that we'll be talking about is King Philip II. He was born on August 21st, 1165 in Paris, France. He was crowned on November 1st, 1179. In 1187, he launched an attack on the city Berry, but then made a truce with King Henry. After Henry's death, Richard Lionheart and Philip II left to the Third Crusade in 1190, but then they had an argument which caused him to leave the Third Crusade. On his way home, he was captured by Leopold V of Austria.
Okay. Next, we'll be talking about Richard I, the Lionheart of England, the king that actually made it to the Third Crusade. Richard I was born on September 8, 1157 in Oxford. He joined his family in the rebellion against their father in 1173. In 1183, his brother Henry died, leaving Richard to the throne. He was crowned on September 1189. After his coronation, a violence came through the country, so he immediately made plans to go to the Holy Land. Richard and his army departed in 1190. After this, the Treaty of Jaffa was signed by both Richard and Saladin, which brought an end to the Third Crusade. He was later fatally wounded and died on April 6 in 1199.
And lastly, we will be talking about Saladin. Saladin was born in the year 1137. He was a Muslim military and political leader that led Islamic forces during the Third Crusade. During the Third Crusade, he was unable to defeat the armies, which resulted in the loss of a lot of his territory and made a truce with Richard I. He later died in 1192.
Now we'll be talking about the causes of the Third Crusade. When Nur al-Din, a member of the Turkish Zengi dynasty, forces seized Cairo in 1169 and forced the Crusader army to evacuate, the Crusaders of Jerusalem tried many times to capture Egypt. In 1174, Saladin began to take control and created a campaign of conquest that increased after Nur al-Din's death.
In 1187, Saladin began a campaign against the Kingdom of Jerusalem. His army destroyed the Christian army at the Battle of Hadin and took a large amount of territory. The outrage between the two leaders caused the Third Crusade. It was led by rulers Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, King Philip I of France, and King Richard I, Lionheart of England.
Now we will be talking about the results of the Third Crusade. Jerusalem ended up remaining to the Muslim hands. Christian pilgrims were still allowed to visit the Holy Land and all the holy places there freely and safely. The towns along the coast that the Christians have recovered would remain in their hands except Ascalon. Since Jerusalem ended up remaining in the Muslim hands, no one won the crusade because a treaty was signed by both Richard I and Saladin called Treaty Jaffa.
The Treaty Jaffa was signed on September 2nd, 1192. The treaty included that Jerusalem would remain under Muslim control, which would later lead to the Fourth Crusade 6 years later in the year 1198. So here we go again, people. We have another crusade coming your way.
Lastly, we'll be talking about the consequences of the Third Crusade. The Third Crusade marked 40 years of almost continuous crusading from Europe. Both Richard I and Saladin didn't enjoy any success and certainly didn't claim a victory.
With the Treaty Jaffa being signed, the consequences were that later someone else would want to capture the Holy Land, which did happen. Pope Innocent didn't agree with the treaty that Richard Lionheart and Saladin signed, so he called for the Fourth Crusade.
Hello everyone, this is a documentary over the Third Crusade. Now we will be talking about Jerusalem, where the Third Crusade actually happened.
There was 3 leaders who wanted to go fight Saladin for that beautiful land of Jerusalem, but only one made it. Richard I, the Lionheart of England. The other 2, King Philip and Frederick Barbarossa, didn't make it.
This exact spot is where Richard I, the Lionheart of England, and Frederick Barbarossa had their argument. And because of this argument is what led Frederick Barbarossa to go back to his homeland. This exact river, Frederick Barbarossa died and drowned.
Now we will talk about what happened after the Third Crusade. Follow me this way. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is the Treaty of Jaffa. What happened was that this treaty right here was signed by both Saladin and Richard I, the Lionheart of England. So what happened is that Jerusalem would now remain in the Muslims' hands. So that means no one won the Third Crusade.
After signing the Treaty of Jaffa with Saladin, Richard I, the Lionheart of England, was captured into this prison right here and later died. And thank you for watching our documentary of the Third Crusade.